Well, I understand that they are bandits, thieves, and all such things. But I grew to truly love them, you know. It was as if God instilled in me such a profound and authentic love for them. It wasn't merely pity or compassion, but truly, genuinely, it was love. Yes, genuine love.
Our life, it's not easy. And those individuals who are currently living on the streets and using drugs, or have used them in the past, are both vulnerable and incredibly resilient individuals simultaneously. They are weak because, well, due to certain external circumstances, they've hit rock bottom and, in a way, took the easy way out, finding comfort and solace through narcotics. But then again, they're incredibly resilient, because I occasionally encounter individuals who have been living on the streets for many years, even for entire decades.
This specific location is precisely where individuals, at any time of the day or night, can readily find and acquire drugs for their consumption. And that's the primary reason why drug addicts gather there. Alcoholics from all cities across Israel.
So my partner and I arrived there and started distributing brochures and Bibles to people, right out on the street. We made sure to reach everyone we could find. There was a group of drug addicts in the park. They were shooting up right out in the open, and there were a lot of them. I was even scared of them at first. They looked so rough, such intimidating drug addicts. They were living on the streets, truly homeless. But then I somehow gathered my courage, approached them, and started to engage them in conversation, offering them the New Testament. And I saw that they were very open to the gospel, very receptive. I remember a girl lying on the grass under a tree. So I approached her and asked, "Would you be interested in a New Testament?" She eagerly replied, "Yes, yes, yes." A few minutes later, I was already praying with her, and then with another and another.
So, in the Aviv Center's ministry, situated right in the center of Tel Aviv, there's the old Tahana Merkazit. That used to be the old central bus station, but as of now, at this very moment, it's a place. How could one even begin to compare it to anything else? There were ghettos back then from when the Germans used to round up the Jewish people into a single area so that they could be better controlled. And now, it's pretty much the same situation here. There's a place just like that, almost in the very heart of Tel Aviv. If you look around, you'll see it's surrounded on all sides by skyscrapers and administrative buildings. But right here, on this tiny patch of land, I know this might sound harsh, but it's like rats in a cage. You know, it's just teeming with a completely different kind of life. Under no circumstances should you ever attempt to enter such areas with cameras or any equipment, because you will inevitably encounter serious problems, and you'll find yourself utterly unable to explain anything if you've never resided or spent any significant time there before. You'll just end up getting your head bashed in, or something seriously unfortunate might befall you. So Tel Aviv is not what you imagine it to be. Tel Aviv is a different world. It's completely different.
And so we started making our way to that very park twice every week, setting up a table and bringing along sandwiches, literature, and we started getting to know them. And for them, for the drug addicts, it was so unusual that someone was suddenly showing them care, because everyone hated them. Occasionally, some Israelis would observe our outreach table, approach us, and quite bluntly say, "You should just give them poison. Why us? Why are they even needed here, right? They should be poisoned, not cared for."
It was a new country. And getting involved with bad company. He was likely fleeing himself. Perhaps I wasn't truly ready to embrace that reality, deep down inside, perhaps somewhere. There's a way. It always starts with cigarettes. Then, when you try cigarettes, you quickly come to realize they won't instantly kill you, despite what everyone keeps saying. Then you might try some marijuana, for example, some weed, because you're told it won't kill you either. And everyone says it's terrible, you'll become an addict, but you try it, and it didn't kill you. Everything is totally fine. And yeah, there's just something. Some kind of bondage. Some sort of bondage. It brings me to the thought that it's more of a spiritual kind of bondage. Because logically speaking, well, one must call for help, and indeed there are people who can provide that help.
Well, you see, when I saw them for the very first time, well, it's just like it's written in the scriptures about the Good Samaritan. When he saw that wounded person, he felt such deep compassion and took pity on him. And I felt such deep compassion for them. I saw these young, beautiful people, both girls and guys, literally perishing right before my eyes. Back then, and even now, though less common, they were dying like flies. I mean, literally every single day someone would overdose. They were literally perishing. I didn't perceive them as criminals at all. Rather, I saw them mostly as young people, just like children. I simply felt so much compassion for them. I vividly recall those initial 3 days. I couldn't sleep a wink. It was just such a heavy burden, just like that. Well, it's not exactly simple. I don't recall the specific Greek word used when the Samaritan showed compassion, but this isn't just ordinary pity. It's a profound sense of pity from God. And they all started calling me Uncle Boria, you know. That is to say, with such respect, you know. These young guys would come and lay their heads on my shoulder, and they must have felt that I also genuinely loved them. So, Uncle Boria, how do you see that? These kids, they didn't respect anyone. You know, they were all young criminals who had been to prison, and they didn't respect their elders. But with me, they had a very special kind of respect. You see, they felt that we came to them with what? That we came to them with love. And every single time I was right there. I used to go there about 4 or 5 times a week. We'd drop Yossi, our son, at school. Then Olya and I would head to the old central bus station, sometimes with the table, other times just to walk. I really loved that area. You'd always meet someone there. And they, all of them, fully engaged with us, openly sharing their life stories and experiences. So I'm heading to rehab, making my way over there. Our connections became profoundly important. Very special with them. Everything was built on bonds.
There's a fellow, been on the streets for 20 years now. Periodically, he disappears from our sight, but he always comes back. You have to be a very strong person to suffer like that constantly, to be on the street, looking for food, looking for drugs, trying to protect yourself from all kinds of circumstances. Rain, cold, heat, it's very hard. It's much easier to raise your hands and say, please help me, but for some reason it doesn't happen.
So, what did I learn about them specifically? What insights did I gather into their lives and experiences that shed light on why they are in their current situation? Why did they end up in the predicaments they're in? because I realized this by talking to them. I had many conversations with them. We were companions, and they confided in me their life stories. And there was an attachment. I was just one of many, though, and there was a team of volunteers. And the one thing that truly united them all, the common thread, was that every single one of them hailed from broken families. I mean, there wasn't a single person among them who grew up in a well-adjusted family. Some grew up with their grandmother. For others, their father was violent towards them, beating them. Then there were those who were orphans, raised in an orphanage, growing up without parental love or guidance.
And it's never really happened, and I've certainly never heard of it anywhere. I don't think I've ever even seen it in movies, where some person was living a peaceful, normal life, is living a quiet, normal life, and then, out of the blue, at some point just decides to try cocaine or heroin. I mean, that simply doesn't happen in reality.
And I haven't met a single one who came from what you'd call a stable family. And through this experience, I came to a profound realization. It was an extremely crucial moment in my life, that these young individuals, these girls and guys, are truly victims. Why? Because if they had grown up in stable families, they wouldn't have ended up this way. If only they had been shown love and attention in their parental home, if they had truly lived in a normal, stable family environment. This isn't to say that every single person who grew up in a dysfunctional family inevitably became a drug addict. But all these drug addicts, every single one of them, they all came from dysfunctional families, without exception. Therefore, I perceived them as victims, individuals who had suffered greatly and became what they are through no fault of their own, but rather due to their parents. And as for their parents, well, I suppose this particular sin, in a sense, traces its origins right back to Adam and Eve, doesn't it? It's not just sin that's passed down, but also this thing where, well, when their parents raised them incorrectly or failed to provide them with what they truly needed, they, in turn, cannot provide that for their own children. And that's how this cycle perpetuates, chaining down through generations.
And yes, indeed, I've seen this plight from both sides. And what's probably most important, beyond the love for these individuals, which I genuinely believe to be something truly supernatural, given that these are people living on the streets, and it is inherently challenging to love them. Because they are frequently ungrateful and sometimes aggressive. But the Lord has somehow instilled in my heart a profound love for them. And what's important is that I'm able to discern nuances and subtle aspects that people often overlook or don't fully consider when they first come to offer their service, especially when they serve in Aviv. It really requires a special tact when you're ministering to them, because these are truly very vulnerable people.
When a bowl of soup is thrown at you and you are forced to remain silent, even then you must approach and embrace that very person. Or for instance, their feet that you know are rotting and emit such a terrible odor, and yet you find yourself washing and bandaging them with care. And sometimes it even happens that with the stores closed in the evening, someone might say, "Oh, you're so fortunate, sitting comfortably here in your warm jacket and socks." And there were moments when our guys would even take off their own socks and jackets, giving them to those less fortunate living on the streets. And it's all so effective, you know? Words don't impress anyone anymore. Especially here in Israel. Christ, it is written, always showed by deed. He first demonstrated this love through his actions, and only then did he preach the gospel of the kingdom of God.
For them, it's incredibly valuable to have someone actually engage with them, for someone to truly listen to their small, personal details, their successes or even their minor setbacks. For them, it's their entire world, and nobody wants to listen to them. Among themselves, they don't even wish to truly hear one another. This really falls right into the category where a modern conversation is when one person waits for the other to finish just so they can say what they want to say. And you see this so clearly on the street. One person says something, then the other says something completely different. And when someone comes and offers them even a small measure of this attention, a glimmer of this light, it becomes an immense treasure in their eyes. And they start to wonder and say, who are these people? Why are they suddenly listening to me? And once they've had a chance to talk, they start to realize what truly lies deep within their soul, which is an emptiness and pain that is skillfully masked by aggression, drugs, and strange, inappropriate behavior. It's all just a facade, a camouflage designed to conceal their inner pain and deeply felt sufferings. So it's a kind of the path, as I perceive it, that has been molded by a significant number of wrong choices and decisions made during their lifetime.
There are guys, right? The guys are mostly, well, they have to hustle, they need hundreds of thousands of shekels a day. They steal, yeah. But often there are many girls involved, and for them to acquire drugs, they invariably resort to prostitution. And at one point I discovered a crucial piece of information about this situation. And this is what researchers universally affirm, that every single one of the girls and women involved in prostitution has, without exception, endured sexual abuse during their childhood. This is a 100% fact. That's a fact. So essentially, it's the very same point I made earlier. Drug addicts are victims, and these women are also victims. I also don't fully grasp the mechanism of how it operates, yet it remains a definitive fact. This is what specialists, psychologists, social workers say. Every single girl, every woman involved in prostitution, it started for them in childhood, rooted in some past trauma. Typically, such sexual abuse occurs in childhood, and it most often takes place within the family. So again, they're victims, and well, when you learn these facts, your attitude towards these people, it profoundly changes, you see. You stop judging them. You don't look down on them or view them with disdain any longer.
We have a brother named Andrei Tragub. He once resided beneath a bridge, and there he had created a small refuge for himself. You know, you'd go there and people are walking on the bridge right above you. But if you go down below, he had it all walled off with cardboard. That's actually where he resided. We used to go visit him there often, preach to him, offer him a spot at our center. He flat out refused our help, drove us away, and even cursed at us. But then, after some time, he requested to come to the center. He had reunited with a friend who had also undergone rehabilitation, and that amazed him. First of all, knowing this guy, what could possibly have changed him? And when his friend testified that he'd been to a rehab center, that he'd come to believe in the Messiah of Israel, Yeshua HaMashiach, the Christ, this man found hope, and he ended up at our center. And now, in the present day, he himself serves as a minister. On a certain day, he goes there for our mission to Tachana and feeds the guys. Today, God has given him a wife and 2 children. These are the kinds of good actions, you know, that happen at Tachana. It's not all just horror there. Good things are happening there as well.
And then, all of a sudden, I started thinking about my prior experiences, and even though in our community we mostly had what you might call regular people, but my heart was always drawn to those drug addicts, those truly unfortunate and needy individuals. They always seemed to be somehow, well, these individuals were always present on my path somehow. Especially in recent years, when I was trying to establish a church community in Tel Aviv, I consistently encountered individuals from dysfunctional backgrounds. And you know, this really got me thinking. It gave me the idea that the next church I endeavor to establish, it's going to be in a rough neighborhood of Tel Aviv. right there, in that very place where all the drug addicts, the prostitutes, the refugees, the poor, and the homeless gather, I had considered, I'll go there and establish a church.
She herself is German, she's Polish, but she lives in Germany, and she would come here regularly. She was quite the business, a truly impressive business lady, and she even owned her own fields back in Poland. She would harvest the crops, sell them, and then come all the way here to donate the finances to Israel. And she would come here every morning to Tachana, back when these tents were still here and none of this existed. She would gather stones like this, set them up and pray. I believe that through her prayers and ours, God destroyed all this. Do you recall the sheer horror this place was? And now, behold, playgrounds, a police station has been erected, thank God.
He came up to me and handed me this thick envelope with $1,000 in it. Back then, that amount was quite a bit of money. And with precisely that money, when I returned home, we were able to purchase these tables, all these kettles, the coffee, the thermoses, you know, all of those things. And we started going there, yes. Back then, well, I never thought if someone had someone told me then that we would have 5 incredible projects like a soup kitchen, a rehab center, a women's shelter, and a humanitarian project, I would honestly have never ever believed it. Well, I just wouldn't have believed it, you know, that it would develop and flourish for us in this way. We have 7 full-time staff members, along with many volunteers. Everything has expanded so much, yet it all began with something so incredibly small.
The unique thing about what we try to do at Aviv, this is not merely an act of showing sincere, genuine love to these people, because all of our volunteers, most of them, 90%, have experienced it themselves. They understand the immense suffering, the severe hardship involved.
A person will live in a civilized society through his message. He is righteous, he will justify many, and he will bear their sins upon himself. For this I have given him a portion.
It's not merely the love and respect we aim to provide, but above all, our central purpose is to transmit our unwavering faith, the very path that has been instrumental in guiding and assisting us. We never impose anything on anyone. Instead, we consistently extend a helping hand and share what we genuinely believe in, which is precisely what brought us through. We talk about Christ, we talk about His love, about salvation, about the forgiveness of sins, about how life can change, that there is a choice. This, we believe, is a spiritual warfare. It's a spiritual warfare, and in this war, the weapon must also be spiritual. We give them bread and water, we nourish them, we offer clothes, and we offer our time and our love. But to truly win a spiritual war, you can only use a spiritual weapon, and we also explain how that works.